I turned 21. I was like, well, I need to get a handgun and start carrying and protect myself. And I mean, I moved 3,000 miles away from home, so it was on me now. Like I was responsible for myself. So I thought, all right, let's do this. Uh, I went to go buy a gun. They're like, oh, we can't sell you a handgun because you're from out of state. So I went to the DMV, got my ID, went right back to the gun range and got my handgun. And so then I had a handgun and didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, all right, well, let's go to the gun range. And so I just so happened to wander into Range Masters. Of the gun ranges that were in town, that was the one that I chose. Wandered into there, hung my target up. It was awful, shot all over the place, but I was like, hey, I can actually do this. Like, I was kind of paranoid at first, put some rounds down range and was like, oh, this isn't too bad. And I was like, well, I need to take a class because this is bad because I was all over the target. My target was awful. I still have it somewhere up in my attic, my very first target. It was really bad. And so I was like, all right, well, let's take a class. So I signed up for Tom's basic handgun class, Tom Gibbons, his basic handgun class. And I went into that class and just right away, just the little simple things that like the basic fundamentals just took me to that like next level of like, oh, okay, like I get this. Because like I wasn't gripping the gun up high, I wasn't doing anything. Once I started doing those basic fundamentals, it got way easier. And I was like, oh, I just needed to do this right. And so, and that kind of hooked me though. And I was like, man, I want to take more classes. So the next class that was in, so I turned 21 August 25th. And so it was like August 29th, I took my first basic handgun class. And then 2 days later, or and then I signed up. And 2 or 3 days later, I took Gabe Suarez's Force on Force handgun course because I was like, well, I mean, this is going to teach me what I need to do. If this is force on force training, then I'm going to see really what I'm going to have to learn. So I signed up for it and took it, and that actually really opened the door up for me because I figured out between me and him, between me and Gabe working together, uh, we figured out how I need to carry. That was a big hurdle. It's like, all right, how am I going to carry? Because I can't carry strong side sitting down in a wheelchair. I can't access it. And so the first thing we did is figure out how I'm going to carry, and we came up with kind of a pseudo appendix carry that's like a cross draw, but kind of in the front. So the grip of my gun kind of straddles the inside of my leg, and then the barrel of the gun straddles the outside of my leg. So it kind of sits over my thigh.
Oh,
And that seemed to work the best for me was that cross draw, but kind of in the front. I could put my shirt over it, and I'm sitting down. Nobody pays attention to me anyways. People are like, oh, guy in a wheelchair, and then they just go about their business. So, I mean, I could strap guns all over me and nobody would notice, but I had a good place to conceal. It was easy to access. And so then he went back to his guys. I think they're in Arizona, and his holster maker made me a custom holster and sent it out to me. And so it was for an XD. That was my first pistol, was an XD. So he got me made a holster for it and sent it out to me. And so this is 2003, and put it on, and that's how I carried for a long time. And then I went back, like literally, like the next month, I went back and took Tom's level 2 handgun. That's where we start learning how to draw from a holster. So that's how that's the story of how I got into it.
wow. Wow. Man, that is incredible.
Yeah, I got real lucky who I got connected with, and like I've always had good luck though about people in my lives, or in my life. They've been real good about being like, well, he'll figure it out. Like they're not like, oh, you can't do this or here, try the. All right, let's see what you can do. This is what you need to do. Figure it out, and I'll work with you. And like Tom was really good about that, and Gabe Suarez was really good about that. Uh, After my second level handgun, I immediately took John Farnham's course, like weekend course. He came out. I took course with him, and that's where I got my one-handed reload from. Was from Farnham. Farnham worked with me on my one-handed reload, and so like I just got input from a bunch of different people about like, well, let's try this and let's try this, and I just took classes and
Man,
pick the
that's
brains
awesome.
of people that had been doing it a lot longer than I had.
Yeah. So, wow. Yeah, you have a real knack of getting in front of like the absolute right people, you know?
Yeah, I lucked into walking into Range USA, and it was all kind of history after that.
Just stroll right into the mothership. That's awesome.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. So, let's see. What kind of reaction do people give you when they show up to class and then you're the teacher? Like, do they treat you any different than they would anybody else or
So they'll comment on it because, and it's usually afterwards. That I don't get much of a reaction before because I'm surprised. Sometimes I'm like, because when I first started doing this, I was like, man, I wonder how people are gonna see me. And one the first thing I have to put out there is like I'm not a veteran because a lot of people assume I'm a wounded veteran. I'm like, I'm not a veteran, civilian, never did military service. I have to get like a lot of people, that's their first assumption. And so I got to get that out of the way. And then so I knew that I was coming from a civilian side of it. So it's like, well, I need to when I first started doing this, I was like, well, I need to put myself in a position of like, why am I in front of these people? So like I trained with everybody that I could. Like so that kind of gave me the confidence to do it because I was like, well, I mean, I've trained and learned under the best. I know what I'm doing. And I go out there. I don't get much of a reaction from people. They're just like, all right, let's do this. And then it's usually afterwards they'll make a comment, be like, "Man, I didn't really know it was going to go on. I wasn't expecting you to roll in here and be our instructor." And I was like, "But it was great," and they give me compliments on it. So it's usually after the fact that they bring things up like that. Like I haven't really had anybody make any reaction before. I think they're just more like, "Oh, okay, let's see what this is about."
yeah, that's good, man. That's great to hear. Yeah. Um so of course you're a training junkie just like I am, but
Yeah, I was. I wish I did it more now, but I was. I spent that's all I did in my 20s.
but at some point it was like, okay, when was the point where you decided, hey, I'm going to start teaching this stuff?
Basically, I don't like school. I don't like college, and so I had made a ton of connections, hanging out at Range Masters and basically living at Range Masters in the mothership. And so, 2003, it was 3 years later, is when I took his instructor course. So I was like, I'm going to take the instructor course. I think this is what I want to do. Like, I think this is my calling. I think I'm good at this. This is what I really want to put my effort into. And so I had made a bunch of connections on that side of it. And like a lot of the time, it's really about who you know and not what you know when you're first trying to get into something.
Yeah.
And so I kind of put the music thing aside and pushed full speed into that. It was 2006 is when I passed. It was August 2006. So it was almost exactly 3 years later is when I passed his instructor course. And I mean, you've taken Tom's instructor course. It's not easy. It is easy now that we've been shooting for a while, but when you first go in there to do it, you're like, oh no. And so I had to prepare for it, and then I had to go in and do it one-handed because Tom isn't just going to hand out things to anybody, and that's why I liked working with Tom. That's why I liked taking his classes and spending time learning under him. Is because I he wasn't going to give me any handouts. Like he was like, all right, this is what you have to do it. And so I was in there every day practicing. The first year that I shot, I think it was 50,000 rounds that I did that year through training and just practice. And then I kept that up pretty good for the other 2 years because I was at about 150 to 200,000 rounds when I finally took my class, and because I had to do it one-handed, and so I had to push real hard to be able to do it. And the FBI qualifier, that wasn't that bad. I got a 96 on it, so that wasn't much. But it was passing Tom's Rangemaster course. His test. I don't know what test he does now because I think he might have changed it. But it was the 10 round shot on the 8x11 sheet of paper, and I had to do that one-handed with one-handed reloads all under time. And so I that was the probably about the year after that, that was my peak ability of shooting because I had been putting so many rounds down and practicing so much. So yeah, that's really when it I put all that effort in and got that one class out of the way, and then it was like, all right, this is what I want to do. And so then I started hanging around range masters all the time. And so he had brought other guys in for us for the instructors there, like the NRA and NRA guys. So we all got NRA certified through that. And yeah, I spent Thursday nights was instructor night, so we were there for I was there for instructor nights, and yeah, I just kind of stuck to it, and it kind of
So
became history after that.
so man, that's a lot of rounds to put down range. How much was ammo costing back then?
It was 9 cents a round.
That hurts.
Yeah,
That hurts.
so, yeah.
Oh, folks, I want to give a very special thank you to the Top Gun Shooting Range in Memphis, Tennessee. This is where I teach personally. We hold permit classes, introductory courses, and advanced handgun self defense courses. You can also rent guns to shoot on the range, including fully automatic machine guns. Also, in pure Memphis fashion, there's a barbecue restaurant in the building. Top Gun Memphis has 4.9 stars on Google reviews, so if you're in the area, come by and see us. Go to topgunmemphis.com for more info.